Hello, my name is Brandon Cross. I am with UMatter. I am here with Brenna Burke, and we are going to be starting this little podcast thing that we're going to get going. And with this, we're just going to be talking about just mental health and like any other issues and stuff going on maybe in the world and everything. And so this is our first one, so it's going to be a little rough at the start and get go. We hopefully can get things going for the next couple of weeks, but yeah, thank you for listening in on us, and hopefully you enjoy what we have here today.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for tuning in. So hope you enjoy. Again, forgive us if we stutter a bit or mess it up. It is our first one, but we're experimenting with the podcast format. So here we go.
Yeah, this is going to be completely script free. This is just a total free flow conversation. No script to go off of, just we want to make it as free to explore on whatever topic we're talking about as much as possible.
Yes, very authentic. No scripts.
Yes.
Like reality TV.
Yeah, keeping it raw. So for our first topic for this week, we're just going to talk about some anxiety and depression, because as college students, I feel like that is just a very centered topic for all of us here.
Yes. Absolutely. It isn't talked about enough, and so we want to talk about it as much as we can, kind of open up the conversation about it.
Yeah. I know I personally have had experienced anxiety, especially within the last couple years.
Yep, so have I, actually, quite a bit. It really, if you're prone to it, it really ramps up in college. College is when it will rear its head full force, you will find. So that's why it's important we talk about it now.
Yes, because I think the statistics that we have talked about within our group is, what, 80%?
Yeah, I think
students?
so. I mean, I don't want to say the wrong information, but yeah.
It's a significant number.
It is a very significant number. And a lot of people don't even realize that they have anxiety. They just kind of see it as normal worries, but then it starts to kind of take over your mind, and your mind's racing, and maybe you can't sleep, or your heart's racing, or you feel shaky, or you can't eat. And that is when it kind of wakes you up, and it's like, hey, maybe I have more than just an everyday worry. Maybe this is actual mental illness or anxieties. So
yeah, for me, what it feels like, it's a lot of just my thoughts controlling me instead of me controlling my thoughts.
I totally agree. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like when I was dealing with it, and when I was going to counseling and everything, it just really felt like the whole world was just closing in on me, and it really felt like there was no way to just escape it. It felt like you were just trapped inside this little room with no way out.
Absolutely, yeah. It's super suffocating and just limiting. Like, that's a really good way to describe it. I think that it feels like you have the world's closing in on you, and that's a really scary feeling. And sometimes, you know, that can escalate to a panic attack, which is like an amplified feeling of that. That's like times 100. You just feel like the world's spinning and you can't get a grip on things. So that's really scary.
And I feel like it starts very differently for everyone.
It does, yes.
It's not the same for any two people.
No, not at all.
I know for me, it didn't start till about a year and a half ago. I had this random episode where I just passed out for no reason and just hit the ground, had to go to the hospital and everything. And that is what started it all. That was kind of just like the string that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
For me, and that's when all the panic attacks started happening. I stopped sleeping. I went on a binge eating problem, and it took me about a year and a half of counseling and to seek help and to just kind of change my inner dialogue for me to finally feel like me again, which is where I'm at right now.
Well, yeah, and I'm super happy to hear that, you know, first of all, you got it taken care of, and you addressed the problem, because a lot of people will deal with these things but just keep it inside. So it's really good that you sought help, but also that you're making progress. That's really good to hear.
Yeah, my whole life up until last year, I had experienced a lot of trauma growing up in like this very toxic household that I was in, and I never really like paid attention to any of like the anxiety stuff. I was always keeping myself busy, keeping myself occupied, so I didn't really have time to think about it. And then when I came up to college and I was finally away from that, that's when I was able to start, you know, evaluating and looking at things from a different perspective.
Exactly.
And then, like I said, like the passing out just kind of was it. It was just years of trauma just building up throughout my life, and then that was just finally the one that did it for me.
Yeah, that's crazy. I feel like a lot of times, you know, it's something that awakens you to the fact that this is a real problem, and it's actually really fascinating in not the best way, but to realize how much, you know, your childhood experiences and your youth and growing up and what happened to you can affect you, and how childhood anxieties can surface themselves in adulthood and really come out. And it's really hard because, you know, you grew up, you had no idea even what anxiety was as a child.
We lack like the cognitive ability to process it.
We don't process that at all, and so we're stuck here dealing with it all as adults, young adults, when young adults have enough to worry about as it is. And so having to relearn the way we process our thoughts and having to relearn how we see the world, because, you know, we are so molded by what happens when we're little, and, you know, even when we're young adults, and we continue to be molded. But if we never break the patterns of, you know, toxic thinking and anxiety and all of that, then that can definitely follow us through life. So it's good to, you know, address these things as young as possible once we realize they're happening.
Yeah, and I think that's a big reason of why I want to do this podcast type stuff, is just kind of get the conversation rolling and to just talk about it.
Yeah.
That's like the most important thing, is acknowledging it.
I totally agree. It gets a lot easier as you talk about it more, you know. People always laugh at me because they're like, Brenna, you're so comfortable with your feelings, but you just say it like it is. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what, you know, 4 years of therapy will do to you. My therapist and I always joke, because she's like, you know, you're so funny with, like, you're so good at just setting boundaries with people, and you're just so straightforward. And I'm like, I don't know. Twitter. Yeah, I'm like, I don't. Yes, my Twitter is a very clear representation of that, but I just almost feel like now I literally don't know how to keep things in, because I recognize that it's so much healthier for me to say how I'm feeling, and to, you know, recognize emotions as the core of my happiness. Like, if I'm not processing my emotions, if I'm not processing my anxiety and depression and addressing those issues, then, you know, I'm gonna spiral downward fast. So I'd rather, you know, tackle it right when it happens. So that's kind of what therapy has taught me through all of that. Yeah, I didn't really make an intro to that, but I have been in therapy for a long time now, and it's good. It's been going good. I mean, obviously, it's not like a quick fix. Nothing is in this situation. Never. I mean, I think that, you know, if you struggle pretty severely with anxiety, depression, or whatever other mental disorder, you know, it can be something that you may have to battle for life. Not to say that complete recovery can't happen, and I've certainly recovered quite a bit. Like, I've learned so much in how to deal with things, and how to recognize what's happening for me internally. But you know, I'm not gonna say that it's gone away because of therapy or because of medication.
It always just like becomes a part of you.
It does. Yeah, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that even though it sucks so much to go through these things, a lot has come of it for me. Like,
when you look back on it.
When you look back on it, when you're going through it, you're like, this, this, like,
hate the world.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, when you're kind of reflecting and you're in a little bit better of a place, you can really say, wow, like,
look how far I've come.
Look how far I've come, and look how much I've grown from this. And I can truly say that. And, you know, I'm only 21, so I know that I have a lot of growing to do still, but I can also say that I do feel very mentally mature for my age, just because of the things that I've been through. So that, you know, that's always a plus that comes of it. So there are bright sides of you just have to look a little harder for them.
And I think as a society as a whole, I think the conversation has really shifted when it comes to you know, mental health and mental disorder. I really feel like we're going in such a much more proper, better direction.
Totally.
Because if you look at, like, you know, the past generations of our parents and everything, how they were just so told to just control your emotions, to just bottle it all in.
I know. I feel sorry for... I'm just thankful that our kind of generation and the time that we're living in is when things have started to shift. Otherwise, I'd probably lose my mind.
Yeah, and it's not just, like, with college students. It's, you know, with normal, everyday people. A topic I wanted to bring up is NBA basketball all-star Kevin Love. Just recently, he had been opening up about how he was having panic attacks and anxiety in the middle of professional basketball games, playing with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I think that's really good for someone on that type of platform to come out and for him to talk about saying that, you know, like, this is what I'm going through and other people go through it, and you shouldn't feel alone. You shouldn't have to, like, experience it. And to have his teammates with someone like LeBron James, who's arguably been the face of basketball for the last 10 years, to come out in full support of his teammate, you know, telling him that, like...
How awesome is that?
Yeah, it's really good. And I think that, like, when you have these role model athletes or actors or politicians or everything being on that platform telling you, hey, it's okay to get help sometimes.
Absolutely.
I think it's really sending, like, a good positive message to the youth and the people who look up to them.
Oh, it totally is. That's awesome. I love that he was able to share that, because I love when, you know, famous people use their platform. Sorry guys, we're sitting outside, so you may hear some background noise.
all the classrooms in the library were all taken up, unfortunately.
Yeah, so we had to improvise, but it's a beautiful day, so not too mad about it. But anyways, back to what I was saying. I just think that it's really cool when people do use their celebrity platforms to make a difference, and that probably inspired so many people. It inspires me, even though I'm not, like, necessarily the biggest sports fanatic. I just really commend him for you know, coming out and saying that stuff, especially because he is a perfect example of somebody you wouldn't think is prone to anxiety or depression.
Yeah, like, there's something about, like, all these, like, professionals and everything who, like, you have this mentality that they're just, like, this perfect. They got their whole life
they have
figured
it all,
out,
they have everything. Yeah, and the fact, you know, that he, one, is famous and has, you know, is probably living his dream, and another is that you know, he is a young male, and a lot of times we don't recognize that males go through this too.
Absolutely.
I think that, you know, females are always very targeted with being the emotional ones, and, you know, possibly even having more leeway for it to be okay that we're emotional because we're women and that's just what we do. But it's totally okay. You know, it happens with everybody, and that's just a great example that even if everything might be going right in your life, sometimes the anxiety and the depression still comes up. It's not always situational. It's not always something that triggers it necessarily. It just comes up, and it's really hard. And I think that it's even harder sometimes in those situations because you feel like you have nothing to justify it with.
Yeah, like you could just be watching Netflix, just relaxing, having a good time, and then all of a sudden a panic attack just rolls in for no reason.
It doesn't have to have something that necessarily triggers it, or it might even be the smallest trigger that you don't even recognize, and you're confused on why it's happening and you don't feel justified. You're like, well, everything's going great, everything's fine, my life is fine, why should I be complaining, why should I have these anxiety attacks, why should I be depressed? But I think that we need to take the shame away from that and just recognize, like, these things happen and we can't always control it, but we can address it and talk about it and make it more comfortable of a subject for everybody.
And I think with, you know, being on a college platform, I feel like there's really needs to be, like, more resources on campus to be able to help, because if you've been to the counseling center here on campus. I've been to it.
Yeah.
The amount of students to help in the counseling center ratio is just absolutely, like, it's hard to work with sometimes.
Those poor counselors. I mean, they have so many students to take on, and then it's bad for both people because the students feel like they can't get the help they need, and the counselors feel like they can't give the service they want to give.
Because there's probably about, what, maybe 10 counselors for
I'm not even
thousands
sure
of students?
It's crazy, the ratio. And you know, it's just like, if people feel limited to the amount of help that they can get, and then the people serving the help feel limited to the amount of help they can give because of the shortage of staff and all of that. Plane. All right. But yeah, I mean, definitely with the resources, and you know, that's kind of our mission as UMatter, is we are the outreach branch of the counseling center. So we recognize that the counseling center is a small place. They're doing their best. They're doing a great job, and it's an incredible resource, and I'm so thankful that we have it. We're just kind of promoting that, and we're also, you know, spreading the message to talk about it. And I know we're small, but I really do think that you know, our passion about this topic really does help people, and helps people become more confident with sharing these things, and just more enlightened and happier,
more open,
and just glad that somebody is here to say something about it, because people can feel really alone with these things.
And there's so many times when we go out and we do these presentations talking about the counseling center, there's so often that there are students who are in the class who didn't even realize that we had a resource like this on our campus.
Yeah, exactly. And it's awesome that even if we reach one student, you know, I'm happy with that. Like, if we can help one person, you know, I feel like we've made a difference, and I love that. So.
And so kind of moving on a little bit on the topic, we talk a lot about anxiety, and so it kind of definitely can go hand in hand a lot with depression. I don't know about you, but that is definitely something that I dealt with a lot in my younger life before coming up to college and everything. And it's a dark, lonely path.
It absolutely is. Yeah, and it can feel it feels like it's defeating you, and you feel like you're fighting so hard against it. Every single day you have this battle in your mind with the anxiety and feeling sad, and
it just feels like this dark cloud that is just like walking over you
around. And it's so hard to feel that when you already have so much on your plate. You're trying to start your life, you're trying to get things going,
you're trying to get your degree, you're trying to get a job to pay rent, you're trying to do all these things that you maybe feel like you just don't have time to acknowledge this depression that may be happening.
You're like, I don't have time to be sad.
Exactly. I have too much stuff to worry about. And I feel like with students, all the other parts of your life can like kind of start clicking and get a little better if you can take the time to acknowledge this, take the time to help yourself out. Yes,
absolutely. I mean, I recognize it in myself, and it's just, I totally believe that if you prioritize your mental health and you get things to where you want them to be, or at least a little bit on a better track, your whole life is going to be on a better track. You're going to feel like you have things under control. You're going to feel like you're killing it in school and your job and your social life.
I feel like my grades are way better now. Now that like I am a lot better dealing with all of this.
Totally. Well, that makes perfect sense. You know, if you feel like you can't get out of bed, how are you supposed to write that essay? If you feel like you can't even move because you're so sad, like, it makes perfect sense. So that's why it's important that we really, really, really tell people, prioritize your mental health, because we mean that. I mean, it makes a world of a difference. So
and something like we've talked about a lot within our group is the fact there's so much emphasis on physical health. Where every year we had to go to the doctors for a checkup to make sure we're physically okay. We're told to constantly be going like to the gym, go for a run and everything, but there's so little emphasis on the fact that mental health, which is just as important
Oh yeah,
as physical.
I thought that was such an excellent point, and I can't believe I hadn't thought of it before. But you know, the whole thing about that TED Talk we watched, where the guy had said, you know, we get physicals every year, but we don't get mental health screenings every year, and that really just opened my eyes, and I was like, wow, that's such a good point. I'm so surprised that hasn't been, you know, taken action on, because mental health is like the foundation of your physical health. I know personally that if I am feeling poor mentally, then I feel poor physically. It manifests itself physically so much for me.
Yeah, like physically sick. You just feel nauseous for no reason whatsoever.
Tired, just lethargic, just not yourself, not well. And sometimes you can't pinpoint it, and that's the most frustrating part. Is it's like, wow, I don't feel well. I don't feel well physically. I don't know why. It's just because of what's going on in your head. And it's crazy how powerful that is. But yeah, we do put a lot of, you know, emphasis on physical health. Like I feel like everybody, even if they've never even had a reason to go there, knows about the health center. There we go.
It is 5 o'clock here.
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Nice that it's later though.
Thank you, daylight saving. I personally think we should keep this savings time. I'm not a fan of the other one at all.
Yeah, well, lose an hour of sleep, but
it's only for one night.
True, but I feel like it affects me for the whole year. You don't realize how long that bell is until you're filming a podcast.
Yeah,
and it interrupts
you have
it.
to sit and listen to it.
All right, there we go.
And we're back.
At least it's not like 10 o'clock and ending 10 times, you know? It's the little things.
So where were we at? So mental health and, you know, physical health, you know, they should go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Way more than what it should.
Yeah, they do. And it took me forever to realize that. Like, that I was feeling poor physically because of my mental health. Like, I had no idea for years that was the reason I was so tired, and that was the reason I was having headaches and nausea and just even weakness, just like not feeling at my prime. And over the years, you know, I've noticed patterns now, and I'm like, wow, it really does affect me physically. Like, that is no joke, you know?
And I think with this entire, you know, getting help that you need and everything, like, it is a process.
Oh, yeah.
It is not an overnight fix. Like, it is going to take some time. It just requires a lot of patience.
It does, yeah.
And I think, like, you maybe don't really notice the change over time, but the people around you, your friends and everything, your family, I feel like they definitely can. Because I've talked to my roommate, and he was really around for a lot of it because we lived together last year and again this year. He was around a lot when I was having all the panic attacks and anxiety. And we've talked about, like, you know, how I am now, and he has just said that there's just a huge difference in my personality and character from last year to what I am this year. And it's just so, like, it's a process. And you maybe don't notice it at first, but the people around you definitely can.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, it's hard because you are in your own body every single day. So a little bit of progress it's hard to track it. And so, you know, maybe you're like one tiny little bit better than you were 2 weeks ago. Well, that's still something. And like you were saying, people around you can notice that. Like, people will make comments, you know, like, wow, you really seem to have more energy today. And you're like, well, that's because I've been taking care of my mental health. Like, nobody actually says that, but we should. I mean, why not, you know? So it's something you should be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's a journey to go on, to have to go all this. The trials and obstacles are just going to be there, but
yeah, progress isn't linear. I just love that saying, and that little graphic, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like where it's all over the place, and it's just like a big squiggly line, and that's honestly how it feels. And but that doesn't mean that you're not getting anywhere. So
any step is a step.
exactly.
No matter how small.
Yeah, and you should be proud of yourself that you're taking it in the first place.
Because that is the hardest step, first one.
Yeah, it's like starting your homework. Just getting started is the hardest part.
But
once you're rolling, you're rolling, you know?
You get going on it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, did you have any other topics you wanted to address today?
I think those were like the main ones, just anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
I got the points in that I want to out this. I felt like this was pretty solid first ever attempt.
No, good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the topics we covered today, and I'm hoping that, you know, this helped out some people who were interested in the topic, or you know, maybe wanted to feel like they could relate to someone. Hello, hi, it's Cross and Brenna. We're here. We can relate to you. We feel ya.
And I think it's not just, you know, women too. It's also like men, and that's why I think it's a big reason why I'm here, is to like, it's for everyone. Like, this is a topic that everyone can relate to in some way.
Totally. Oh my god, totally. Do you know how stoked we were at UMatter when we got a man on the team finally? We were like, oh my gosh, yes! A male! There's not so much estrogen in the room now.
I hope I can live up to it.
You're doing a great job.
But I just want to thank you for helping me with this.
Well, thank you for having me.
We'll be continuing doing this. We're hopefully going to be doing at least one a week.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. It's the goal. It's the goal.
Yeah, and we want to expand on this. Sometimes it might not just be Brenna and I. Sometimes we can have another member of UMatter organization, or just anyone else in general. Maybe we have a friend that maybe wants to kind of come in and just talk about it. We're open to anyone to tell us their stories and how they're feeling. And
yeah, and you don't even have to have any experience in mental health. You know, we want to hear everyone's perspective.
Yeah,
so whoever wants to hop on the show.
Yeah, we want to get the word out, spread mental health positivity, and bottom line, you know, take care of yourself.
Absolutely, because you matter.
So if you've been listening for this long, thank you. Appreciate it. We hope maybe you can stick around with us as we continue to grow this.
Absolutely, yeah. We were so happy to be able to do this. Thank you so much. And we will see you guys for our next podcast, which will hopefully be very, very soon.
Hopefully. We'll see.
All right.
Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.